The day after the girl I was obsessed with confessed her feelings for me, I apparently traveled 10 years into the future. The moment I opened my eyes, a small child with enormous eyes was shyly calling me Dad. A little while later, in a dusty storage room, I located our wedding photograph. I never would have guessed the bride in the picture was her. I woke up and realized I had jumped 10 years forward in time. I was lying in a bed I didn't recognize, in a room that was completely unfamiliar. Just as I was feeling totally lost and confused, a tiny figure hurried in through the doorway. I immediately closed my eyes again, pretending I was still asleep. The footsteps drew nearer, and then a soft, small hand rested on my forehead. A child's innocent voice started talking, telling me all about what he had been eating and playing with recently. Just as I was trying to understand my relationship with this child, his next sentence startled my eyes wide open. He said, "Daddy, you've been sick for days. Why aren't you waking up? I know you don't like Sam, but Sam really misses you. Please wake up, Daddy." Daddy? This child called me Daddy. My eyes shot open. I saw a cute little boy with big eyes and a small mouth staring at me, his expression full of fear. Before I could say anything, the kid scrambled away and disappeared from the room. My God. Just last night I had finally accepted the confession of Chloe, the girl I'd wanted for years, and I wake up to a kid this big. After the boy ran off, I immediately grabbed the phone on the nightstand to call my best friend, Mark. I had no idea what I had been through over the last 10 years, but my phone was practically empty. All my old friends had vanished from my contact. The phone rang a few times before Mark picked up. "What do you want?" His voice was unfamiliar, detached and cold, in a way I'd never heard it. I scratched my cheek, his stoic tone leaving me speechless. Seeing that I wasn't talking, Mark was the one who got agitated. "Adam, say something. Didn't you say you'd never contact me again?" What on earth had I done over the past decade? I thought for a moment and said, "Mark, I know you're the quiet, serious type, but please stop for a second. I just want to ask you, who is my wife?" That was the only thing I cared about right now. Mark was silent for a moment. "Adam, did you forget to take your medication today?" The Mark from 10 years in the future had apparently learned to be passive-aggressive. "I'm being completely serious." "Did you forget your meds?" "Whatever, just wait at home. I'm in line for a COVID test. I'll come find you when I'm done." Mark sounded quite serious. Maybe I hadn't time-traveled. Maybe I was just sick. And what exactly was a COVID test? And why was there a line for one? Just as I hung up, a woman who looked like a housekeeper knocked on the door, carefully asking if I was feeling any better and if I wanted something to eat. It seemed my wife, whoever she was quite wealthy. I nodded, and soon a large spread of exquisite dishes was laid out in front of me. I never thought that 10 years later I'd be living the life I had always dreamed of. I tried to subtly ask the housekeeper about my wife. She looked a little surprised and only said that my wife was on a business trip and wouldn't be back until next month. That was good news. By the time she returned, I'd probably have adjusted to this new situation. I picked up my fork and started digging in. I had to admit, everything was my favorite. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw the little kid peeking around the doorframe. I waved him over. "Hey, kid, come here." He flinched and walked timidly to the bedside. Why did this child seem so scared of me? Don't tell me I married into some rich family and became the kid's stepfather. I scratched my head and tried to sound as friendly as possible. "Hey there, little guy. What's your name? How old are you?" The kid's chubby little face crumpled with hurt, as if he couldn't understand how a father wouldn't remember his own son's name. "Daddy, my name is Sam Allen. Everyone calls me Sam. I'm 4.5. I kept going. "Sam, let me quiz you. What's your mommy's name?" "My mommy's name is—" "Sam, there you are. It's time to go downstairs for your lessons. Don't bother the master while he's resting." The housekeeper, who had suddenly appeared at the door, cut Sam off. "Sir, I'm so sorry I lost track of him. I'll take him downstairs right now." The housekeeper nervously came over and pulled Sam away. I was pretty confused, but could only nod. Ever since I woke up, this housekeeper's attitude had been strange, as if I were some kind of dangerous person. Since I couldn't find out my wife's name, I decided to look for clues myself. The bedroom was luxuriously decorated, but there were no wedding photos and no signs of another woman living here. Could this be one of those situations where the wife just sends money every month but never comes home? When I walked out of the room, I realized I was in a 2-story house. Downstairs, Sam was sitting quietly by the French doors, playing with a puzzle. Sunlight streamed in, and with his long eyelashes cast down, he looked like such a good, quiet little boy. My heart completely melted. I quickly walked over to him, which made him jump. "Hey, buddy, what are you playing? Dad will play with you." Little Sam's eyes went wide, and he immediately stood up straight as a board, mumbling, "Daddy." I pulled him over and planted a big kiss on his pale little cheek. He touched his face, looking pleasantly surprised. Seeing his reaction, I started to guess that the 10 years later version of me probably wasn't very fond of this child. Luckily, Sam was young and didn't hold a grudge. After I played with him for a bit, he happily started showing me his puzzle. "Buddy, is a puzzle all you have to play with?" A kid his age should have tons of toys. Sam glanced at me, cautiously. "Daddy said my other toys were too noisy, and it made you angry." Great. The 10 years later me really did have issues. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Mark. When Mark walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Was this really my quiet, slender best friend? Not only did he have a sharp buzz cut, but he was also built like a tank, with a mature, intense look in his eyes. I widened my eyes dramatically. "Who are you, handsome?" Mark just rolled his eyes at me. Sam, however, seemed to know him well, running right up to him and calling out, "Uncle Mark!" Mark ruffled Sam's hair and said to me, "Let's go upstairs to talk." I quickly led him back to the bedroom, and before he could speak, I spilled the whole story. After listening, Mark frowned and looked me over before asking the most important question. "How do you know you time-traveled and didn't just get amnesia?" I remember my last meal before I traveled was the tomato beef stew from the school cafeteria. It was delicious. And I remember I had an exam 2 days before I traveled. I even remember the questions. If I had amnesia, there's no way I'd remember details like that for 10 years. Mark raised an eyebrow, but still didn't say anything. He knew me as well as he knew himself. I pursed my lips, embarrassed. "Okay, fine. The day before, I had just accepted Chloe's confession." Mark's small smile vanished, and he let out a cold laugh. Then he launched into the story of what happened over the last 10 years. It turns out the future me really was sick, bipolar disorder. And the reason I got sick was because my ex-girlfriend, Chloe, had cheated on me. Mark said that after Chloe and I got together, she was nice to me on the surface, but was secretly manipulating me the whole time. By the time he realized something was wrong with me, it was too late. Later, Chloe falsely accused Mark of hitting on her, and in my confused state, I ended our friendship right then and there. As for me, at 27, I was dumped by Chloe. Her new boyfriend was my college roommate. I couldn't handle the betrayal and developed bipolar disorder. The story was bleak. I rubbed my forehead and sighed. This was basically the sad first half of Adam Allen's life. So, what about my current wife? That was what I really cared about. Mark looked at me, paused for a moment, and then said, "It's Sarah." What? In my wildest dreams, I never would have imagined I'd end up marrying Sarah. Me, Mark, and Sarah basically grew up together. When we were kids, our families lived in the same building, and we all went to the same school. Sarah was always that legendary kid you're compared to. She was beautiful, a great student, and a genuinely good person. She helped elderly people cross the street and gave up her seat on the bus. Back then, the more my parents praised her, the more annoyed I got. But as someone who appreciated a pretty face, I couldn't help but stare at her often, making her blush. Once, I got past that bratty phase and started noticing girls. I admit I had a bit of a crush on her, but so many guys liked her that I just stayed away. Even when she showed me a little special attention, I just chalked it up to our childhood friendship. Besides, she ended up going abroad for school later. And now Mark was telling me that Sarah had married me. The shock was like hearing that pigs could fly. In a flash, another question popped into my head. Sam is 4.5, and I broke up with Chloe when I was 27, so Sam is... Mark gave me a troubled look. We weren't on speaking terms then, so I only heard things secondhand. The story goes that you and Sarah were caught in bed by Chloe. As for Sam, he's Chloe's son. Back then, Chloe used the kid to blackmail Sarah, so she had no choice but to... Anyway, Sam's origins are complicated. You'll have to ask Sarah about it yourself. The information overload was frying my brain. So not only was I cheated on by my ex, but my wife has been getting blackmailed by her with a kid. The thought made me dizzy. No wonder the room only showed signs of me living in it. Sarah must really despise me. But if that's the case, why did she agree to marry me? Wait a minute, I said. If Chloe cheated on me, how could she catch me in bed with Sarah? Even if I was capable of that, Sarah just isn't that kind of person. Mark said, I don't know the specifics. It seems like Chloe tried to break up with you first, but you refused. Then she caught you with Sarah and used it as an opportunity to flip the script. This plot was too insane. I touched my face and said, I feel handsome in a completely brain-dead kind of way. Mark patted my shoulder. Face it. After she manipulated you, you basically became an idiot. But Adam, seriously, whether you have amnesia or you time-traveled, I only have one thing to say. Be good to Sam. I can't get involved in your stuff with Sarah, but that kid is just so pitiful. Sarah's busy with work and gone for half the year. And you used to hate Sam. You never paid any attention to him at all. I clenched my fists. My poor, sweet Sam, for the foreseeable future, please get ready to feel your father's burning love. I had just finished making my fatherly love to-do list. 2 days later, little Sam went off to kindergarten. It turned out it was summer break before. Normally, a private kindergarten like Sam's stays open, but most of the kids come from wealthy families, and many parents want time off to take their children on trips. Thinking of Sam playing all alone with his puzzle downstairs that day, my heart soured. I decided I had to take Sam out to play in a couple of days. That evening at dinner, Sam sat in his chair swinging his little legs, telling me about his day at kindergarten. After a few days together, he wasn't so scared of me anymore. At bedtime, for the first time, Sam asked if he could sleep with me. He wore dinosaur print pajamas and lay obediently beside me. "Daddy, tell me a story." I took the book and started making something up. A long, long time ago, there was a prince. After the story, Sam smiled and said, "When I grow up, I'm going to protect Daddy." Right. Since I time-traveled here, I've never heard Sam mention Sarah on his own. Could it be that Sarah isn't good to him? So I cautiously asked, "You don't like Mommy?" Sam shook his head frantically. "I like Mommy, it's just—" He looked at me with a careful expression. The message was clear. I was the one who didn't like Sarah. That just didn't seem possible. One day, after the housekeeper took Sam to school, I started cleaning out some old stuff. Unexpectedly, in the corner of a storage room, I found a wedding photo. In the picture, my face was completely blank, like a soulless puppet. Beside me, Sarah was smiling, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. It was an ugly picture. I went to turn the photo face down, but I heard a clatter. A small box that had been tucked behind the photo fell to the floor. Curious, I opened it. Inside was Sam's birth certificate, and also a note I had passed to Sarah in class once, along with a love letter. It was from 16-year-old Sarah to 16-year-old Adam. In that instant, I couldn't quite place the feeling in my heart. It was a strange, heavy feeling, a mix of regret and a deep, unfamiliar sadness. This love letter was 16 years late. I stared at it for a long time, then put it back where I found it, pretending nothing had happened. At the kindergarten entrance, teachers were leading out groups of little kids. Children seem to have a superpower that lets them spot their parents in a crowd instantly. When Sam saw me, his eyes lit up, and he waddled over to me like a little duck. He looked up, his face flushed. "Thank you for picking me up, Daddy." My heart instantly turned to mush. "From now on, Daddy will pick you up from school every day, okay? Can you drop me off in the morning, too?" I shook my head firmly. "Sorry, buddy. Daddy can't wake up that early." Just then, a little girl ran over and looked at me. "Mister, are you Sam's dad?" I nodded. The little girl sized me up and complimented. "Mister, you're really handsome. But why did you never pick Sam up before? The kids in class all say you don't like him." Before I could answer, Sam clutched my pant leg and said, a little angry, "Don't say that! Daddy likes me!" The little girl looked at me, then at Sam, completely bewildered. I quickly calmed them both down. After we got home, I saw Sam was a little down, so I bought him a bunch of my favorite snacks and promised to get him a huge gift for his birthday. Sam looked at me with anticipation. "Yay! Mommy said she's coming back too." I just saw the love letter today, and I haven't even figured out how to face Sarah yet, and she's already coming back. That night, following my to-do list, I decided to help Sam with his bath. He refused, no matter what. He blinked, his big eyes, and said seriously, "I have a willy, and Daddy has one, but Mommy doesn't. Besides, I'm almost a big 5-year-old. I can wash myself." I squeezed his chubby little hand. "Really? It's gonna sting if shampoo gets in your eyes. And you're still just a 4.5-year-old. Little Sam hesitated for a moment, then chose to accept his dear old dad's help, though his face was red the entire time. Soon, it was Sam's birthday. He was more excited than ever. Unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. Just after noon, it started pouring rain. Sarah's flight was in the afternoon. Who knew if she'd make it back on time? So I called Sam over from where he was staring out the window to open his presents. I'd prepared 5, hoping to make up for neglecting his birthdays before, No matter how mature he was, Sam was still a kid. He was soon lost in the joy of his new toys. Sarah walked in while Sam and I were zipping around in his electric toy car, laughing our heads off. "Daddy, it's my turn. You said you'd only play for a little while." "Hang on, buddy. Dad just needs one more minute." Hearing the door open, we both instinctively looked over. Outside, the rain was coming down in sheets. Sarah appeared out of the storm, her coat soaked through. Sam yelled, "Mommy!" and ran to her excitedly, but she looked past him, up at me. Our eyes met across the room, and my heart started pounding. Even if I hadn't time-traveled, it had been almost 2 years since I'd last seen Sarah. I had to admit, with her glasses on, she was ticking all my boxes. A beautiful woman, glasses, a soaked dress suit. It was everything. I snapped out of it and stammered a greeting. Sarah took off her wet coat and walked right up to me, giving me a hug. My body went stiff, but I managed to wrap my arms around her. We were legally married, after all. This wasn't taking advantage of her. She whispered in my ear, "Adam, I'm home." She looked at me quizzically, but didn't say anything. By the time I'd lit the birthday candles, Sarah had changed and come back downstairs. I scratched my cheek. I'd been psyching myself up to sing happy birthday, but now I couldn't get the words out. Sam keenly glanced at me, then at his mom. Then he made a loud wish. "I wish I could sleep with Mommy and Daddy tonight." I pursed my lips. "Good job, Sam. You're the best." But Sarah just looked at me and said to Sam, "Wishes don't come true if you say them out loud." Her reaction completely doused my enthusiasm. I'd forgotten. There were misunderstandings between us, and Sam's birth was the biggest unresolved issue of all. I've never been one to procrastinate. When Sam was out of the room, I said directly, "Sarah, we need to talk." The moment the words left my mouth, her face fell. "I'm tired. Whatever it is, can we talk about it tomorrow?" She hugged me when she walked in, and now she's giving me the cold shoulder. She said we'd talk the next day, but from then on, Sarah started avoiding me. By the time I got up every morning, she'd already left for work. "What time do you get up?" In the coffee shop, Mark looked at me suspiciously. I rubbed my nose. 10 o'clock. That's perfectly normal, right?" Mark asked if I liked Sarah. I took a sip of my coffee to hide my expression. The reason I agreed to date Chloe back then was because she was thoughtful, kind, beautiful, and graceful. But my feelings for Sarah were different. Mark rolled his eyes. "If you ask me, this is all Sarah's fault. If she wasn't so high and mighty, that psycho bitch never would have gotten her claws in you." He had a point. It's always better to blame others than to blame yourself. Just as I was about to keep ranting with Mark, my phone rang. 20 minutes later, I was at the kindergarten. Reason, I got called to the principal's office. In the office, Sam stood there defiantly. Another kid was crying his eyes out. The teacher told me Sam had started it by pushing the other boy down. The kid had a scrape on his hand, and his parents had already been called. I asked what happened. Sam looked at me with a pained expression, buried his head in my chest, and mumbled, "He said bad things about Mommy, and he wouldn't say sorry." Why would that kid insult my wife for no reason? Just then, the other parents arrived. "Who's the little brat who dared to bully my son?" It was a couple. The man was burly and glared at me. The woman was immediately furious, scooping up her son and launching into a tirade. "So you're Sam's father? Let me tell you, this isn't over. Who do you think you are, letting your kid bully my son?" I raised an eyebrow. "Sam was wrong to push him, but your son was the one who started with the insults." The other kid, now that he had backup, stopped crying. His eyes darted around, and he blurted out, "I didn't say anything bad. Sam's mom is pretty, but she's a homewrecker and a tramp." A little kid wouldn't know words like that. He must have picked them up from the adults. "Hey, little guy, did you know that when kids who say bad words go to sleep, the big bad wolf comes and bites their tongues off?" The kid snapped his mouth shut. The woman's face soured. "He's just a child. Why are you trying to scare him? My husband is the general manager of a big company. So what if our kid insults you a little?" She shot me a disdainful look. "Besides, the kid wasn't wrong. We never see her around. Who knows what kind of job she has?" I mimicked her, looking her up and down. Ugly person, ugly words. I was wondering where a kid would hear such filth. Turns out there's a dog barking at home all day. "Who are you calling a dog?" Before I could react, she lunged forward to grab Sam from my arms. "You little monster! Get over here and apologize to my son!" I sidestepped, and the teacher, seeing things were getting out of hand, tried to intervene. As the scene devolved into chaos, the woman saw her chance and tried to slap me across the face. Suddenly, an arm shot out and grabbed the woman's wrist tightly. "Are you here to solve a problem or to start a fight?" It was Sarah, frowning, her expression grim. The man who had been so aggressive a moment ago went wide-eyed. "Ms. Allen?" he stammered. He quickly pulled his wife back and started apologizing profusely. Sarah said, "What a coincidence, Mr. Henderson." Turns out this so-called big company manager was a supplier. Sarah's company was currently in talks with. He had a reputation for being sleazy, and his wife was constantly screaming and cursing at home, which was a terrible influence on their kid. Sarah raised a hand, cutting him off. "Mr. Henderson, that wasn't your attitude a moment ago. It seemed less like you were here to solve a problem and more like you came for the show. If I hadn't shown up, that slap would have landed on my husband's face. I hear Sam pushed your son. Fine, we'll take him to the hospital for a checkup, and we'll pay for any medical bills. But before that, don't you think you and your family owe my husband and my son an apology?" The two of them immediately started bowing and scraping. I didn't like them acting like that in front of the kids, so I took Sam and left. When we got home, I thought it was the perfect time to talk with Sarah. She immediately said, "I have to get back to the office." "Not so fast." At my command, Sam launched himself forward and hugged his mom's leg. Sarah frowned. "If this is about a divorce, let's at least not talk about it in front of Sam." I rolled my eyes, pulled her into the bedroom, and pinned her against the door. Her rescuing me like that. I have to admit, it was impressive. I looked down, met her eyes, and whispered, "Honey." Sarah's breath caught, and her face turned as red as a cooked lobster. My own face was burning. I cleared my throat twice and started explaining the whole time travel thing. After a while, she said, "It's a little hard to believe, but it's a rational explanation. I noticed something was different on Sam's birthday. I thought your attitude had softened because—" Sarah's voice trailed off. "Because you thought I wanted a divorce?" "Yeah. Looks like I was pretty awful to you before." "So what really happened with that caught-in-bed story? And Sam? Sam isn't your son. He's the son of Chloe and her ex-boyfriend Ryan. She used the baby to blackmail me, and Honey, couples need to be honest with each other." After I said that, Sarah defensively pushed up her glasses and spilled everything. So the word honey was like open sesame for this proud woman. From Sarah's fragmented story, I pieced together the truth. When Chloe couldn't get me to stay after the breakup, she used Sam, the child she'd had with her ex, Ryan, to harass and blackmail Sarah. Sarah, being soft-hearted and not wanting to cause a huge family drama, was slowly backed into a corner. At the time, my mental state was terrible because of the breakup and betrayal. Sarah chose to marry me then, partly to take care of me, and partly to use the marriage to get Chloe to back off. "Ms. Allen, it's getting cold. Time to make Chloe's family go bankrupt." Sarah gave me an amused look. "We called the police at the time, but there was no evidence. And you denied everything." In a way, Chloe was a real talent. She managed to steal my brain without me noticing, and turn me into a complete moron. My life's most embarrassing moment, right there. Sarah and I chatted in the room for a long time. From me blackmailing her into buying me snacks as kids, to me breaking Sam's toy car the other day. By the end of our talk that day, I still couldn't bring myself to ask her to move back into the master bedroom. Some things you just have to let happen naturally. She's my wife. She's not going anywhere. As for Chloe, before I could even go looking for her, she sent out an invitation for a class reunion in our old college group chat. She even tagged me specifically. When I saw the message, I wanted to run to the bathroom and slap myself a few times. "Adam, you idiot. How did you let yourself get fooled by someone like that? If I had known, I would have chased after Sarah like crazy when we were kids. Of course I was going to the reunion, but I wasn't going alone. I told Sarah everything. She asked me what I was planning. I said, first, I'll scope things out. Then, it's payback time." I patted her on the shoulder. "Ms. Allen, I'm counting on you to back your husband up." Sarah raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. On the day of the reunion, I had planned for Sarah and me to just pop in and leave, but the housekeeper happened to have the day off, so we had to bring Sam. I figured a lot of people had probably heard about what happened between me and Chloe. Worried they might say something thoughtless, I had Sarah stay in the car with Sam at first. Sure enough, the moment I showed up, a bunch of classmates swarmed me. Some were sympathetic, some were sneering. I looked at all the familiar faces. It felt like just yesterday I saw them full of life and energy, and now they were all so jaded. Thanks to their big mouths, I got an update on Chloe. Turns out my old roommate had lured her away after his family's property was demolished, and they got a huge payout. Now she had her own company, and word was it was doing pretty well. After a while, Chloe and her boyfriend arrived. Looking at her now, I only had one thought. Thank God. Look at that sagging skin, those stiff cheeks, those overfilled lips. There wasn't a trace of the campus goddess she used to be. And she had the nerve to tag me. "Adam, it's been 5 years and you're still as handsome as ever." Chloe came over, putting on an act. I gave her a fake smile and said nothing, then escaped to the bathroom to call Sarah and tell her to come get me. I had zero interest in any kind of one-upmanship or drama. On the other end of the line, Sarah let out a low laugh and said she'd be right up. I had just walked out of the bathroom when a figure leaning against the wall startled me. The figure spoke. "Adam, have you been okay all these years?" It was Chloe. When I didn't answer, she even tried to grab my hand. I felt like jumping 10 feet in the air. "Stay back. I'm allergic to plastic surgery." Chloe's face twisted for a second before she recovered. "Adam, are you still mad at me? I had no choice back then." I quickly waved my hands to cut her off, gave her 3 deep bows to thank her for the gift of breaking up with me. It was like a new lease on life. And then fled back to the party. I had just sat down on a sofa when Chloe followed me. Just then, a hush fell over the noisy room. Then came the whispers. "Is she one of our classmates? Wow, she's gorgeous. Did we have someone like that at our school? Damn, even Chloe back in the day couldn't hold a candle to her." I followed their gazes. It was Sarah. I breathed a sigh of relief and quickly went over to take her arm. "Everyone, this is my wife." Since Sam was still waiting in the car, Sarah and I didn't stay long. Seeing Chloe and Sarah standing next to each other, looking like they were from two different generations, was something else. I sighed. Turns out there are no lingering regrets in this world. On our way downstairs, Sarah playfully asked if I had canceled my big "put them in their place" scene. I pretended to be a little drunk, leaned my head lightly on her shoulder, and whispered, "I already won." The summer night breeze was gentle. I suggested we leave the car there and take a walk as a family. I looked at Sarah beside me and whispered something in her ear. Her eyes lit up as she turned to me, her expression exactly like Sam's. I smiled, took her arm, and pointed to a public electric scooter up ahead. "Honey, my legs are tired. Let's take that home." Her gentle, watery expression instantly became complicated. She glanced at my nice dress pants and asked, "Are you sure?" I blinked. Sam had never been on an electric scooter before, and the wind was filled with his happy laughter. We didn't even make it a mile before we were stopped by a traffic cop. We got a $20 fine for having a passenger on the scooter. Sigh. We ended up taking a taxi home after all. A long time later, I saw Chloe again. I was out on the street with Sam, getting some snacks. The fragrant smell of fried, stinky tofu from a corner cart drew me in. I scanned the payment code and realized the person selling the tofu was Chloe. She recognized me too. With a pained expression, she started rambling about how her company had tax problems. Most of her clients left, and finally her accountant ran off with all her remaining funds. She had to close the company and was now drowning in debt. To top it off, she even tried to manipulate me again, but she no longer had the looks she used to. I fought back my disgust and said, "Don't worry, I'll definitely think of a way to help you when I get to home." As soon as I was out of earshot, I made a call. "Hello? I'd like to report someone operating a business without a license." Watching the city inspectors confiscate Chloe's cart, my eyes welled up. Such a shame about my stinky tofu. "You're feeding Sam junk food again?" Just as Sam and I were hiding in the crowd watching the show, we were caught by Sarah, who had just arrived. I grinned sheepishly. "We didn't eat. We were just watching the excitement." Sam chimed in to back me up. Yeah, me and Mommy didn't eat any fried skewers, or grilled cold noodles, or octopus balls." That's Sam, smart from a young age. Sarah gave us a helpless look. "Next time you want to eat something, just tell me. The food out here isn't clean." I nodded while simultaneously rattling off my order. As the city lights began to glow, the three of us slowly walked home together. Epilogue. 1 second, I was curled up in Sarah's arms, talking about having a second baby. The next, I opened my eyes, and I was back in my dorm room. Still groggy, I answered a morning call. "Adam, get up, your baby is waiting downstairs for you and she's hungry." I jolted upright in bed. Who was that? Oh, right. Chloe. Just thinking about what she looked like 10 years later made me lose my appetite for 3 days. So I rushed downstairs and in front of everyone, dumped her. Then I called Sarah. The phone rang for a long time before she picked up. She mumbled a raspy hello, and then went silent. Remembering that I had just made my relationship with Chloe official last night, I cleared my throat. "Sarah, so close, yet a world away. What did you mean by that social media post this morning?" Sarah's breath hitched. She didn't say anything. So proud, that one. "I'm giving you one chance. Don't ask any questions. Just answer me. Do you want to be in a relationship with me? with the goal of getting married? Adam, I like you. I always have. So why did the love letter never get to me? You know about that? I knew about it 10 years later, because that day I overheard you in the classroom telling someone that you would never, ever like Sarah. The one time in my life I tried to be cool, and it cost me this much. Sarah, I actually time-traveled from 10 years in the future. You might not believe this, but in 10 years, we're married. That's right, and we have a kid. That bombshell was enough to make Sarah fly back from overseas overnight. Not only did she formally confess her feelings to me all over again, but she also rushed over to my parents' house for dinner. And so, a year after graduation, Sarah and I got married, and we took beautiful wedding photos. Mark was my best man and wouldn't stop complimenting me. After we got married, Sarah and I both focused on our careers and weren't in a hurry to have kids. Until I turned 27. Is today the day? I whispered in Sarah's ear. I wrapped my arms around her neck. She answered sleepily. Sam's birthday is today. Froze, my mind suddenly crystal clear. Sarah looked at me, a blush spreading across her face. You silly goose! There are 12 months in a year! I tried to understand what she meant with my completely melted brain. She stroked my head and smiled. Pregnancy takes 10 months, so if fate is destined, the seed for our little Sam was probably planted 2 months ago. 12 months later, Sarah successfully gave birth to an adorable baby boy. We named him Sam Allen. Across the river of time, through a miracle that science can't explain, again and again I found you.